Hello, Northbrook Middle School 8th grade social studies students. I'm Mr. Bork, here representing also Mr. Edwards and Mr. Parr and Miss Polycarp. All of their students, welcome, and my students, welcome to this show. This is the digital learning show that's going to take place while we're out, either for this week, next week, who knows how long it's going to be, but this will be one of the different ways that we communicate with you. It won't always be me. Sometimes we'll have guest stars, but we'll basically be kind of talking about the content as we begin our study of government, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. Before we start, I have to say, great job to all of our 8th grade social studies students on this interim. We scored fantastically in the district, and we couldn't be prouder of you. We can't wait to see what you're going to do for the remainder of the school year, and here we go. So the first day, Monday, to begin our digital learning sequence here, there are 2 PowerPoints you're going to want to take a look at. Now, the first one is on the differences between the Georgia Constitution and the United States Constitution. Okay, now the Constitution, just in general, that's like the set of rules that a country or a state is going to follow. The U.S. Constitution is the set of rules for the whole country. The Georgia Constitution is going to be the set of rules just for us here in the state. And our Constitution, it starts with a preamble. And the preamble just basically talks about what the Constitution is going to be about. And you can see an example of it there. The whole preamble is right there in the PowerPoint. So go ahead and take a look at that, and then also compare it on the next slide to the preamble of the United States Constitution. And we're going to ask you, like, what are different, what's similar, and just kind of go through that. So that's sort of the first thing. Now, in the Georgia Constitution, the next part is the articles. And there are 11 articles, and the PowerPoint's going to take you through the 11 articles. And I'll be honest with you, some of them aren't really that important for us in terms of what we're going to study. I mean, we're showing you what they are so you can kind of see the different topics, but in general, some of them are more important than others. And the first one is very important. The first one is the Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights is going to, that's going to list all of the different, Article 1 lists all of the different personal rights. There are property rights. Go through those and take a look at what the different rights are that are guaranteed in the Georgia Bill of Rights. And the Georgia Bill of Rights comes right there at the beginning. It comes right at the beginning, and that's going to be something that's going to be different than the United States Constitution. So all of our personal and property rights are all listed right there at the beginning. Article 3 is going to set up the legislative branch in our state. And of course, our legislative branch is divided. It's called the General Assembly. That's what it's called, but it has 2 parts. Okay, it has the House of Representatives and it has the Senate. And both of those 2 groups, they make up the General Assembly. And the General Assembly, their job is to create new laws. They are the lawmaking body in Georgia. They create and write and vote on laws in Georgia. Article number 5 is the executive branch. And that's going to set up in this state the governor. The governor is the executive, and he has with him, as part of the executive branch, all of his state agencies, like law enforcement agencies. That's part of the executive branch. And also the lieutenant governor. That's kind of like president, vice president at the federal, national level. But it's the lieutenant governor takes over if the governor is to become incapacitated or die and not be able to serve. Also, the lieutenant governor is the leader of the Senate in the legislative branch. So that's kind of an interesting little separation of powers right there. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Article 6 is the judicial branch. It sets up the court system in Georgia all the way up to the Georgia State Supreme Court, and we'll talk more about that in a little while. Article 7 are rules about taxes and finance. Article 8 are rules about education and like how all the school districts are set up. Article 9 are rules about corporations. Article 10 is very important. Article 10 is a big one. That's about amendments. That's like, how do we change the Georgia Constitution? So that's a big one too that you would want to know. And then Article 11 is miscellaneous other provisions. So when you look at it, and if you go through the PowerPoint and you see, really, it's not that complicated, the Georgia Constitution. You got the preamble, telling us what it's going to be about. Then you've got all the articles. And really, Article 1, the Bill of Rights, Article 3, the legislative branch, Article 5, the executive branch, Article 6, the judicial branch, and Article 10, where the amendments are. Those are the only key things to kind of remember. The rest of them will fall into place if you need. It will give you information about it if you need. But those ones that are in the PowerPoint underlined, really kind of make sure you know what that's going to be. Now, when you compare it, because we're going to ask you now to compare it to the U.S. Constitution, and when you go and look inside of the PowerPoint, you'll see I've kind of laid it out for you. You've got a preamble, like we talked about. Then you've got the articles. Okay, and you can see how many articles there are. There are 7 articles, and you can see what they're about. You can see then come the amendments are at the end. And the amendments, the first 10 of them in the United States Constitution are the Bill of Rights, the freedom of speech, freedom of the press. Compare it to the Bill of Rights in the Georgia Constitution. It's the same sort of stuff, freedom of speech, freedom of the press. But compare that. Compare those two. Take a look and see how they compare. Because the assignment for this online, which I'll tell you now, is you're going to need to answer a question, a fundamental question. Today for Monday, there's $2 million questions. Okay, the first $1 million question, I'm going to read it for you just like you're going to see it. How does the structure and form of the Georgia State Constitution compare with the structure and form of the United States Constitution? And I told you there, what's similar, what's different. Give me a short paragraph. It's a reply. You'll see the question posted on your teacher's e-class in the activity feed, and you go underneath and give a reply. And I think this would be a short paragraph. And you can read the other responses that other people have written as well. Later, if this digital learning goes really long, then we might start doing things where we're going to really start discussing each other's posts in a discussion board. So that would be something fun. But for today, you don't have to do that. You're just going on this question, $1 million question number 1. You're going to just give us, it'll probably take about a really short paragraph to answer, okay? And then you can open the second PowerPoint. And the second PowerPoint is about checks and balances and separation of powers. And I know that you guys know a lot about this from prior units and prior years and learning in prior grade levels, and that's great. So we're going to take that learning a little bit deeper here, okay? So Georgia's got the same deal as the federal government, okay? We are separated into 3 branches of power, just like you saw in the Constitution, the judicial branch, the executive branch, and the legislative branch. And that exists because we want to make sure that one branch doesn't get too powerful. We want to make sure that they all kind of look over each other. I've included a link it's linked on the PowerPoint, and it's a file in the content. Heck, maybe I'll play it right now. Yeah, I'll play it right now. This is Schoolhouse Rock's 3-ring government, and it kind of bases it on a circus. It's old school and corny, but watch it. It'll give you the idea.
Gonna have a 3-ring circus someday. People will say it's a fine one, son. Gonna have a 3-ring circus someday. People will come from miles around. Lions, tigers, acrobats and jugglers and clowns galore. Tightrope walkers, pony riders, elephants and so much more. Guess I got the idea right here at school. Felt like a fool when they called my name, talking about the government and how it's arranged, divided in 3 like a circus. Ring 1, executive, 2 is legislative, that's Congress. Ring 3, judiciary, see it's kinda like my circus. Step right up and visit ring number 1. The show's just begun, meet the president. I am here to see that the laws get done. The ringmaster of the government. On with the show! Hurry, hurry, hurry to ring number 2. See what they do in the Congress. Passing laws and juggling bills. Oh, it's quite a thrill in the Congress. Focus your attention on ring number 3. The judiciary's in the spotlight. The courts take the laws and they tame the crimes, balancing the wrongs with your rights. No one part can be more powerful than any other is. Each controls the other, you see, and that's what we call checks and balance. Says, well, everybody's act is part of the show, and no one's job is more important. The audience is kinda like the country, you know, keeping an eye on their performance. Ring one, executive. Two is legislative, that's Congress. Ring three, judiciary. See, it's kinda like my circus. My circus. Gonna have a three-ring circus someday. People will say it's a fine one, son. But until I get it, I'll do my thing. With government, it's got three rings.
So you made it to the end of that video. That's good. That's good. And you know, strangely, you liked it. I think you liked it, okay, the three-ring government, but it really lays it out there, right? They all watch over each other, and you can see in the PowerPoint there's some examples that are listed that you're, and in the packet that you're going to do, there are going to be examples that are listed that'll show you, like, you know, some of them. A president can sign a law, but the Congress can, a president can veto a law, but the Congress can override his veto if they have enough people. The president at the federal level gets to appoint Supreme Court justices, but the Supreme Court justices can rule on constitutionality of laws. They all have powers that touch the other areas of government so that nobody can be too powerful. Now, the $1 million question, your second $1 million question, I'm going to read it, okay? Why do you think that Georgia's leaders created a constitution that created the three branches that use separation of powers and checks and balances? Like, what's the point of doing that? When Georgia wrote its constitution, why do you think we patterned it to have those same features as the United States federal constitution? Okay, now that one you're gonna answer it. You'll see the question posted, the second $1 million question. This one's probably just a couple of sentences, though. It's probably not a short paragraph. But that's the nuts and bolts of the beginning. Okay, and I'm Mr. Bork. For those of you I don't know, hi. And there will be Mr. Edwards guest appearances and Mr. Parr and Ms. Polycarp guest appearances throughout the week. But tune in. This is your spot to learn about Georgia state government, all the cool stuff in the state that you live in. I can't wait to see you back here tomorrow. Get to work now. Oh, don't forget, you'll want to do that first part, the chapter 30 part of the packet, because print it out. And or if you want to do it in a notebook, that's fine too. But you'll want to do that first part here because it kind of matches what we're talking about. I'm Mr. Bork. I'll catch you on the intro wave.